As 10,000 members of the Teachers and Educational Workers Union, TEU, lay down their tools effective tomorrow, expect locked lecture halls, no issuance of certificate, and general breakdown in sanitation and maintenance on campuses nationwide. That according to the national president of TEU, Suleimana Abdul Rahman, after he declared an indefinite strike over what the union describes as lackadaisical attitude in addressing concerns of workers. The union cites the failure of the government to pay Tier 2 pension allowances to fund managers, extra duty allowance and car maintenance allowance for junior staff, among others, for the industrial action. Speaking at a press conference today, Mr. Abdul Rahman said government should respect the terms of agreement they entered into and address their grievances. My colleague Ohim Interior has more in the following report.
The Tertiary Education Workers Union of Ghana boasts of over 10,000 members in all the public universities nationwide. Members include cleaners, drivers, security personnel and administrative secretaries, among others on the various campuses. The union accused government of failing to honor its obligations to pay extra duty allowance, car maintenance allowance due members and pension funds to fund managers. A one-week ultimatum to government to act on the concerns of the union expired last week. National President Suleimana Abdul Rahman, who addressed charged members at KNUST, says the workers are fed up with what he described as the lackadaisical attitude of government towards their concerns.
TEU demands, or therefore demand, that payment of the Tier 2 pension funds by government to the fund managers immediately. 2. TEU further demands payment of vehicle maintenance allowance to deserving staff, to TEU members in the public universities without discrimination. 3. TEU also demands the payment of extra duty allowance through overtime to the affected members in some of the public universities. National Executive Council (NEC) of TEU held an emergency meeting this morning, today, 31st January 2024, concerning the issues tabled above. In the said meeting, NEC has resolved that, following the lackadaisical nature of the employer, which is the government, resolved that the Tertiary Education Workers Union of Ghana is hereby declare an indefinite strike action. And the strike takes effect from 1st February.
The union says there will be repercussions for members who defy orders of the national executives to join the industrial action. Meanwhile, the union says members who provide essential services, such as members of the University Security Corps and principal secretaries, including those at the Vice Chancellor's offices, are initially exempted from the strike. Mr. Suleimana, however, explained.
We are not actually withdrawing everybody, because if we are withdrawing everybody, the security staff, everybody will have to go along with. But if government is failing to listen to us, at the end of the day, we have no option than to withdraw the whole security in the public universities. And I can tell you, if that happens, what will happen? The public universities will have to be locked down, but we don't want to get there. But of course, as I said, if we are pushed to a wall where we need to withdraw every services, that will be done. It's the security and the secretaries to the principal officers. We expect that they will assist the principal officers, I'm talking of the vice chancellors, the registrars, finance directors, to work with governments to make sure that they spearhead our issues to get it resolved.
From Kumasi, for Joy News, Ohim Interior reporting.
Now let's get onto the phone lines now and speak to the national president of TEU to find out what next, since they declared the strike. Grateful for joining us here. Now, we know that you declared the strike some few hours ago, but has government reached out to you since you declared that nationwide strike?
Thank you so much for having me, and good evening to your listeners. Yes, so government have not actually reached out to us since on the 22nd of January 2024. We gave government an ultimatum itemizing the issues that we're asking government to resolve. But unfortunately, government did not engage us.
Oh.
So the National Executive Council had an emergency meeting at KU yesterday, and the decision was that we had no option than to go along with our earlier statement to government. So tomorrow we don't expect any of our members to go to work, except the security as we have mentioned.
Okay.
But we expect everybody to respect the of the National Executive Council.
Interesting. Grateful to you for joining us, and we'll be with you tomorrow and see how it goes. Now let's go on to the lines and speak to Deputy General Secretary of the TUC, Joshua Ansah, because they are the mother union of all of these labor unions. Grateful for joining us, sir. Now, effective tomorrow, TEU is commencing its indefinite strike over what they describe as government's lackadaisical nature towards their demands. Now, 2 days ago, the University Senior Staff Association also rejected the NLC's order to call off its strike. The question is, how do you want your concerns addressed while you're still on strike?
Oh, thank you very much. I think this strike issue is for TEU and for TUA. But the TUC, as an organized labor group, I think that you will advise that both parties must ensure that the issues that has resulted in this strike must be resolved and resolved on time, so that we avert all this kind of strike in this very country. When government and when employers and the employees have an issue, I think one should not take an entrenched position. Government always think that, or the employer always think that they are right. But I think that when people do not work, there's no way that this country can develop. So I think that whatever the teachers are asking for, government must sit down and ensure that he satisfies them so that they go back to school and teach our work.
Case they're saying that government has not really lived up to expectation in terms of meeting their demands. So they are going on strike, effective Thursday. So as the mother union, what are you doing in all of this to ensure that, there's some sort of resolution to the issues?
That's exactly what I'm saying, that for us as CUC, our advice to the government, our advice to NLC, our advice to the parties involved is to come together and ensure that whatever is being the bone of contention is resolved so that we have peace in this very country.
Okay.
If teachers are expected to work very hard, then they must also be met halfway or whatever. Whatever they're also looking for to make their work easy and life easy for them, government must also listen to them and help them to do exactly what is expected of them to do.
Okay.
Otherwise, they turn the country to strike, which I don't think is very okay for this very country.
All right, do stay with me, because we recall that you issued an ultimatum to government to embark on a strike following the failure of government to withdraw the imposition of a 15% VAT on electricity consumption. Now that expired today.
Yes.
What's the TUC's next line of action since the decision, the ultimatum you gave has not been respected?
Thank you very much. This is a follow-up to what I was just saying. If government behaves adamant to some of these requests, that is the result you have in this very country. You directed that they should impose 15% VAT on electricity bills to people in this very country without prior consultation and discussions with anybody. We gave you an ultimatum to withdraw it totally. We gave you a deadline today. Government has not budged. It has not done anything about it. So we are meeting on Friday to actually take a decision on the way forward. But as I speak to you now, we still stand by our total withdrawal. Without the total withdrawal, I don't see any sense in sitting down discussing what. We are not asking for negotiations. We are not asking for a reduction. We are saying that the trend is not good and it must be withdrawn. So that is our stand. You meet on Friday, and the final decision will be made by organized labor in this very country.
Interesting. So from the deadline has elapsed. Will we see the TUC, moving to the next gear in terms of declaring a strike?
I wouldn't call it a strike. I will call it. We are advising. I will call it an advice. We are advising ourselves, and our advice can go either way. You know, our people are all over the country, and we wanted to meet this night, but it's not going to be possible because people have to travel all the way from the north, from the south, from the east, from the west. That is why we are fixing a date on Friday to meet and actually make a decision on the way forward. But we still demand that government must withdraw. If it doesn't withdraw, Friday when we meet, the whole world will hear about our advice.
Oh, grateful. Now, there's another looming industrial action as the Medical Laboratory Professional Workers Union, an essential healthcare service provider, threatens to lay down their tools over government's neglect to their demands for clearly defined conditions of service. The union says they are concerned that the posture of government shows that their services are unappreciated and undervalued. They have therefore given government a 14-day ultimatum to call them to the negotiation table or they embark on a strike action. We've been joined by Dr. Franklin Ni Amate Smart. He is consultant medical laboratory scientist. Now he's joining us via Zoom. But before we join him, listen to this.
The point must be made that strike is one of the options. When we get there and we advise ourselves appropriately, and strike is the best, we'll take it. But I must make the point that it is not in our interest. Who are the people who bear the grudge of our strike and our actions? Is it not our relatives? So we are not really interested in going on any strike. What we are saying is that let us all push for duty bearers to act. When duty bearers act and they come to table and we have negotiations, strike will be needless. It is our considered view that 14 days is a reasonable time within which duty bearers should act.
Let's speak to Dr. Franklin Ni Amate Smart. Doc, I'm grateful for joining us here. Now, you've issued this ultimatum. What really is it? Because when you say conditions of service, it's quite broad. But what are the real issues that you're looking for?
Conditions of service hinges on the remuneration and the economic well-being of every professional. Conditions of service even extends to your leave.
Well, Doc, I mean, you're making a point that this is about your conditions of service.
For the worker. And so it is for this reason that as professionals, we have been pushing since last year so that we can have conversations about our conditions of service and get a codified conditions of service for the medical laboratory class of workers.
So what you're looking for is a codified conditions of service. Doc, did you
Yeah,
if you are there, I'm trying to find out from you. So what you are looking for is a codified conditions of service, right?
I didn't quite hear you. Your voice is quite low.
I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me now? Okay. So they are looking for a codified conditions of service. Let's see how that goes. Meanwhile, labor consultant Austin Game is projecting more labor agitations given the possibility of change in government next year. According to the labor consultant, these labor unions are seeking a guaranteed assurance for their conditions of service in the event that there is a change in government.
We are living in an uncertain period when decisive decisions will have to be made and documented to give a guaranteed assurance to working people that when even there is a change of government, they can have source of reference that we are owed this and this has been the arrangement. Period in time, it does appear the level of perception of kind of change of government cannot be let go, and therefore working people, particularly who are owed monies that are statutory in nature and in character, they want to be sure that they are not surprised when that change happens and the new government may not be able to accommodate them. These are the uncertain periods that we are living in, and worse things are yet to happen because we do not have leaders who know how to properly negotiate and share information to reduce the kind of perception that is hanging around their neck. They don't have the grasp on industrial relations practices, the best way to enable them to negotiate this kind of perceptions, even at pressure point. That's where they are now. That's what's creating the problem. And I can guarantee you there's a lot looming ones that is coming. It's not so much, and I don't believe it's about blackmailing, because those who love the party in power, they are there. Those who love the party in opposition, they are there. But some of the people who are even lovers of the party in power have this tier 2, have these need deductions which are statutory, not being paid.
And he joins us via Zoom now for more on this. Doc, I'm grateful for joining us. Now, you're predicting there will be no end to these industrial action as the election approaches. How should government handle this so it does not tip the balance?
Thank you. Right. Indeed, it's not about a prediction from me. It's obvious. Everybody can see and feel the heat that is on government. And therefore, it is important for government itself to take steps to ensure that these things are not repetitive. You know, here are the university people who are well elected. These are people who are reasonably well educated. They know what is good for them and what is not good for them. And nobody can say that all these people belong to an opposition party. It's not possible. So it's for us to stop worrying ourselves about the so-called people being engineered by partisan consideration and confront the issue that is before us frontally and deal with it decisively. And I think that if they can approach it from that angle, we will find a common solution that will bring industrial peace, because government needs that peace. The nation needs that peace. But the way we are going about it, the perception is being deepened on daily basis. I think that is the reason why we are where we are.
Maybe government is also not coming to the table because of probably the financial constraints. How would you advise government to handle it, even though it hinges on finance?
Well, that is the reason why they should rather meet. If you don't have anything, I mean, normally if I don't have money, that's when I dress well. So it is better they come forward, meet the people who are demanding this from them, to enable them to sit down, open the books, tell them what you have and what you don't have, and payment term arrangement agreed. You know, there will be, whether it is John Mahama, whether it is Alan Tremantin, whether it is my brother and friend, Dr. Baumia, who is going to become the next president, is new government. And the workers want assurance that when there is a new government, they will not renege on any existing arrangement. So it is incumbent on those who are duty bearers today to sit with them and have this thing documented. And when they need help, they should not hesitate to look for it.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us here. Now, away from that, the flag bearer of the main opposition, National Democratic Congress, the NDC, today took the party's case against the implementation of a proposal to hold this year's general election in November instead of the December 7th to the leadership of the Christian community. The Electoral Commission has been pushing for the implementation of the proposal and is set to begin the process towards amending the constitution so the new date will be applied to this year's general elections. John Mahama maintains it is too late to implement the proposal this year. Well, the commission is standing its ground despite NDC's protest, declaring it will not change its position because they are determined that the proposal is in the national interest. It's just been a few days since they returned to the Inter-Party Advisory Committee, IPAC, after months of boycott due to the strong disagreement with the EC. The latest controversy is already threatening to further strain the relationship. We'll hear from the EC shortly, but first listen to John Mahama addressing the leadership of the Christian community in Koforidua as part of the Building the Ghana tour.
In the meeting, the clergy had the opportunity to make input into the NDC manifesto. Aside from the policy proposals, the call for a peaceful election came up strongly. The flag bearer of the NDC is concerned with the potential of chaos in the election. He made reference to election violence at Ayawaso, West Wogon, and deaths recorded in the 2020 general elections.
And now, Mene say, the 5th anniversary of Ayawaso West Wogon.
Today marks the 5th anniversary of the disturbances at Ayawaso West Wogon on his sick bed. In 2020, 8 people died because of electoral violence. There have not been any investigation into the incidents. Families haven't been compensated as well.
Last year, 2020, Ghana for 8 in a year. Your investigation, you compensate your families, nothing. In your canon, it's a reality.
Mr. Mahama believes reformation of the electoral processes should have been proposed earlier. He observed the Electoral Commission has turned deaf ears to the complaints of the NDC.
Elections are a very emotive event. There are many emotive things. They say ethnicity. And it's money since year 2 about 2020. Aka beye bosom 9 months. Near 2 about for. You are now coming with major changes. You find indelible income, but say. Sana, you don't build the confidence of the people in the electoral process. And I feel so, and you may be brave, you're complaining, and so be in fear. You're saying IPAC based on, say, Peace Council near Becca sign near there. You're saying IPAC. Now you are say, any omwedin come say person shift the election date, and changes be person they want to bring a new CI to change the old CI. And can they say, why wait till now? You don't spring surprises on people like that. What I say? Anka from last year, names changes. Anka someone engaging. You don't wait till 9 months to an election. Now more best spring surprises. It will affect all of us.
Well, the commission says it will not change its decision just because a political party is unhappy. Now, the deputy director in charge of operations has been speaking to my colleague, Blessed Soga.
On what transpired yesterday, more of the political parties were supportive of the change of the date from December to November. Looking at our calendar, we are pretty sure that we'll be able to do everything.
The largest opposition party, the National Democratic Congress, says it is not aligned to this proposal. If successful, it will mean that indeed the EC will go ahead to hold the elections on November 7. Are you mindful of the concerns that the NDC has, and what reactions do you have to their concerns?
The NDC expressed support that for this year they are not ready for it, but for 2028 they are ready for that. The EC hasn't stated that by hook or crook we are going to do it in 2024. That's not what we've said.
Yeah, but you've given us a condition, and the condition is that if you're able to go through all the processes early enough, then we might implement that this year.
Yes.
I'm saying that the NDC says, be it as it may, you cannot do that change this year.
I don't think you are trying to say if NDC says we cannot do it, it means we cannot do it. Is that what you are trying to say?
Is that what you're suggesting as well? Because that's the largest opposition party, sir.
Oh, but Mr. Soga, all the parties, we have the NPP, the NDC. There have been several instances where they've said no to something. And if the EC strongly believes that that thing is in the national interest to advance the cause of the country's democracy, we don't say because MPP has said this or NDC has said this, we are not going to do it. You don't forget the EC gave a reason. And one of the main reason we gave was that in the event there's a runoff, it puts so much pressure on us because you have only within 21 days to be able to execute the runoff. So we would wish some additional days being given to us
And I just want to read a quote from Dr. Omani Boama, the Director of Elections for the NDC. He says that why wait for January to be ending without stakeholders having the electoral calendar for 2024 elections? And why did the EC not introduce these discussions in 2017, 2018, 2019, and why not even after the 2020 elections?
We explained all this at IPAC. We said some of the things internally we've been working on them. So for us, based on the nature of our work, the information available to us, the efficacy of our equipment, we are pretty sure that if we start in January, we will be able to complete it, have the elections in November.
And one more thing, I thought that would have been the final one. The reforms you're introducing ahead of the general elections. One has got to do with the reversal of the indelible ink. The public is still asking questions as to what may happen in the main elections. You reverse that for the district level elections, but for the parliamentary and presidential system, concerns are rife about maintaining electoral integrity. Are you mindful of that, even as you contemplate reversing this policy? And what's your final stance on the use of the indelible ink?
No, the EC hasn't said that we are not going to use indelible ink in the 2024 election. We haven't made that point anyway. What we explained was that when you look at the biometric technology, if people go through that verification process and at the same time you try to apply the ink on them, clearly it amounts to duplicity. Because the verification system basically says that this is Blessing Soga who has come to vote. After he has gone through the process, why do you still want to apply another system or the indelible ink so that it sends another signal that the same Blessing Soga has come? So that was the explanation we gave.
Now, the subject of whether or not to hold this year's election in November was top on the agenda of an IPAC meeting on Monday. The EC had reported that majority of the parties in the meeting agreed to hold the elections early. We know the position of the NDC. What about the governing New Patriotic Party? We've been joined on the line by Henry Nana Boakye, who is the national organizer of the party, and also joining us is Deputy General Secretary of the NDC, Mustafa Bande. Let me start with you, Henry Nana Boakye. Was the consensus on the subject that it should be held in November? Henry Nana Boakye, I want to start from you. So I want to find out from you what the consensus was on the subject that the election should be held in November.
Yeah, hello. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. So from the MPP, our position is that, first of all, the Electoral Commission should be able to present to the entire nations, and for that matter, the political parties, we are major stakeholder in this whole business. They should be able to present to us their calendar, their schedule, their plan for the entire year. This is an election year, and every political party is actively planning around the schedule that we presented to us. So that is very important. And the IPAC, they promised that in some few days is going to come up. Now, this issue or this proposal being tabled by the Electoral Commission to change the date from December to November, for us, the rationale behind it is quite good. In fact, in 2016, similar proposals were put before us. We were okay with it. The only challenge we raised at that time was the timing. It was 5 months to the elections. If you decide to go through such proposals, it will also go through a certain process. You would have to go to Parliament, to have to be in Parliament for quite some time before you can change the date. So our position then was that because of the time, it cannot be done. But now I think that we have 11 clear months before the elections. So if they start, they can do it. I have a challenge with the NDC and the reasons they give. It appears that they are shifting from the main reason, and they are saying that the EC should rather focus on their core mandate, which is to deliver free, fair, credible elections. But that is what they've been doing all this time. And then they try to say that there have been challenges with the district assembly elections. We've had some challenges in the past. In fact, every electioneering system in Ghana, you come up and then you realize that there are some challenges. But the fact is that we have to move on. So the fact that we have had some challenge in a particular electoral cycle means that we cannot move forward with such proposals. I think, for me, that is not the point. And
so it means that there was no consensus on the subject.
No. I mean, majority of the political parties, they are okay with the fact that the EC can change a majority. And I'm surprised when the NDC says that it is not true. I'm surprised. In fact, I think even this evening, you spoke to a rep from Kodeye who was also there. And then he also mentioned, he confirmed that, yes, indeed, majority of the people in the room were for the fact that the date can be changed. As to whether it can be done earlier for us to use it for this year's election was another matter.
Now let me bring in Mustafa Bande, who is Deputy General Secretary of the NDC. Mustafa, why is your party afraid that, 11 or so months to election is not enough a time for us to talk about a change in the day?
And good evening to our listeners. Good evening to my brother Nanabi. The NDC cannot be afraid of an election with a very incompetent government, a government that have lost track. The only reason that they gave in 2016 is probably the same reason that we are given today. If their reason was cogent enough to make some sense in 2016, we are raising the same issues today, and the MPP want us to believe that our issues are not cogent enough. We are simply saying that the Electoral Commission in the last few years have been overwhelmed by issues of not being able to give a credible election. In fact, the recent assembly election is a testament of EC's failure, and those challenges were managerial. We all agree that they were operational. In fact, the recent last week MPP election in Yendi was a clear testimony of EC's inability to produce a credible election. And Anabi will disagree, but I will say that why didn't they allow that to go? Now, we think that the issue of transition is not a mandate of the Electoral Commission. We've had elections in this country since 1992. We've had runoffs, we've had elections without runoffs. Various commissioners have been able to deliver. We are going into a very interest-centered election.
But
10 to 11 months
Mustafa,
within the calendar.
10 to 11 months. What was your position in 2016 when that proposal came up? Has that changed?
Well, I want to believe that that proposal was tabled by the Electoral Commission when we were in government. And the MPP had an objection to that arrangement. And so it didn't work. Today, the situation in 2016 is not the same as we have today. We are dealing with a commission that has not been able to deliver a single credible election. And that all political parties believe that, yes, we are up for reforms which are very important for our democracy and our electioneering process. But of course, because we are already within the election year, we use CI 127 to do our limited registration. We use CI 127 to do this assembly election. Any change will lead to inconsistencies, and for that matter, it will be chaotic. And for that matter, we as political parties and stakeholders should rather help the Electoral Commission to foster relationships that can build and lead to delivering a transparent, credible, free and fair election.
I'm grateful
an election that will ensure that when the ordinary Ghanaian
I think your point is well made, Mustafa, and all of you. So it means that there's no consensus in this on the subject of changing the voting day from the 7th December to any other day in November. But this is an interesting one that we'll be keeping an eye on. This is still the JoyNews Prime. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back with more. Do stay. Welcome back from the break. Now, the Parliament's Public Accounts Committee has ordered the arrest of former head teacher of the Ahamansu LA Primary School in the OT region, Wisdom Patrick Krampa, for fraudulently paying himself over 72,000 cedis on earned salary. Mr. Krampa was cited in the Auditor General's report for validating himself for payment between 2018 and 2020 when he was not at post. Appearing before the committee today, District Director of the Education for Kajebi, Seth Seram Day, said all efforts to retrieve the money has proven futile. My colleague James Aveji has a wrap of the day 3 of the committee's sitting.
Appearing before the Public Account Committee on day 3 of its sitting, was the Ministry of Education led by the Deputy Minister, Gifty Chumampofo, in the case involving former head teacher of the Ahamansu Early Primary School in the Oti region. The District Director of Education, Seth Seram Day, in his explanation to the committee revealed that Wisdom Patrick Krampa, who was a validator himself due to his status as a head teacher, connived with a circuit supervisor at the District Education Office between February 2018 to June 2020 to pay himself a total of 72,000 Ghana cedis. He said until recently, Mr. Krampa had been complying with their investigation, but in the last few days, he has refused to pick their calls.
Invitation came, we invited him again to the regional office. He agreed to come and see us to make some romance so that he can start paying. Since 3 days ago, his 2 lines have been off. If you call, he will not respond. So that is where we are now. Thank you.
So now his initial position that says that he did not receive any unearned salary has changed.
Yes.
He has now accepted that he received the salary.
Yes.
Good.
He said Mr. Krampa has since resigned from the school to join the Youth Employment Agency as project supervisor.
But he no more at GES. He works with the Youth Employment Agency now.
At
Dambai, the regional
office.
Yes.
Unhappy with the whole drama, the committee ordered an immediate arrest and prosecution of the former head teacher, Wisdom Patrick Krampa.
Now, 2 of the victims of the Ayawaso West Wogon by-election violence that happened 5 years ago say they are yet to receive any compensation from the government as recommended by the committee set up to investigate events that unfolded that day. Now, victims Mohammed Al-Hassan and Ishahawu Yaro, who were both shot and are paralyzed, are pleading with government to come to his aid.
To the epicenter of the chaos that ensued during the Ayawaso West Wogon by-elections 5 years ago. Sporadic shootings happened here at this very white building. Now, the shootings extended to the store with bullets perforating the store after several gunshots were fired. Some of the victims that were shot that day have been rendered incapacitated. Today, they're calling on government to implement the recommendations of the Emily Short committee that was set up to investigate what happened during this violence. They want government to compensate them.
They said that they should compensate us, but still they haven't given us anything since that time up to this time. Even one person, none of the officials even come to visit us. Even one person, they haven't given us even one person herself. All of us, all the 6 of us, that were injured. We haven't received anything from them since that time up to this time.
We are, should I say, we are begging or pleading with the government. As at now, you can see I cannot do anything. I was the one taking care of my families. Now I'm at home. I cannot do anything. So I'm pleading with the government. He should fulfill his promise. As he was the one set the committee. After all back and forth, after everything, they give him the report. So we are begging the president to look inside the emission committee report so that the government must do the necessary to give us our compensation, because it's not easy.
Shades of the violence still lingers on the minds of residents who live here, as they have refused to speak to me on camera, with excuse being that they might be putting themselves in danger if they do so. Reporting from Ayawaso West Wogon in Accra, Kenneth Jesse for JoyNews.
Sometimes you're not in the mood, you have to. Yeah.
Who knew breaking records could be this catchy and, well, expensive?